Hi, I wanted to make a video regarding interest rates. A lot of people will get really confused when it comes to interest rates. They think of it as if interest rates go up, then that means that the stock market will go down. If interest rates go down, then that means the stock market will go up, right? Makes sense, yeah? Yeah, not so fast though. But the way most people view it through the lens of is essentially if interest rates go up, that means that it's more expensive to borrow money, which in theory is true. But again, how it plays out in practice is entirely different. Yeah? And same thing with if interest rates go down, that means, well, it's the market should go up even more, right? Because now it's getting cheaper and cheaper to borrow. Yeah, that makes sense if you view it through the lens of that. So I wrote down a couple of things here. Number one, okay, so let's just look at what actually happens. Number one, we should probably go to the 2-year treasury yield. And I've done this many, many times before, but it's important for us to understand this because we need to understand that Jerome Powell doesn't really control interest rates. Okay, this is the 2-year Treasury yield. Okay, again, the way the Treasuries work is they are inversely correlated as far as the price and the yield goes on them. Okay, so if the 2-year Treasury goes up, that means that the yield will go down. If the 2-year Treasury goes down, then that means that the yield will go up. Okay, inversely correlated. In orange, you have the Fed funds rate, which is the overnight lending rate. All right. It's important you keep this in mind because they're two different things. Okay. So the Fed funds rate follows the 2-year Treasury yield. You can see when the regular candles came down, the orange comes down after. When the regular candles go up, this goes up after. When the regular candles go down, then the Fed funds follows. Regular candles go up, Fed funds follows. Regular candles go down, the Fed funds follows. And the same thing over here. Regular candles go up, Fed funds follows. Regular candles go down, the Fed funds follows. The regular candles go up, then the Fed funds follows. And then as the 2 years starts to go sideways, so does the Fed funds rate. So if we understand that Jerome Powell doesn't really control interest rates and it's all about psychology, yeah, because again, uh, that is the main thing that they can control. And again, I always go back to this quote. When I was at the Federal Reserve, I occasionally observed that monetary policy is 98% talk and only 2% action. The ability to shape market expectations of future policy through public statements is one of the most powerful tools the Fed has. So, why is it that when, again, if we go back to this, yeah, let's look at this right here. I'm gonna go to the S&P 500. Why is it that historically speaking, when the 2-year, and we're gonna overlay the 2-year and the Fed funds rate, but again, the 2-year leads the Fed funds rate. You can see when interest rates are going up here, yeah, the stock market goes up with it. When interest rates come down, the stock market collapses. When interest rates go up, then the stock market goes up. When interest rates go down, then the stock market goes down. Not so fast though. Look at this. Huh? What happened here? They were starting to fall in the summer of 2006, and the markets were going up. Yeah, and then they realized that they were rallying on um, false hopes and some type of story, a narrative that interest rate cuts were going to be bullish. So if we overlay the Fed funds rate now, yeah, and instead of viewing interest rates through the lens of, and again, we're gonna go over this example as well, because people are gonna say, but they lowered interest rates here and the stock market went up. That's true. We're gonna go over this example as well. Actually, there was a recession right here, but they lowered interest rates right here. Okay, they went from 6% down to 4.75, let's say, yeah, from here to here, yeah, and then the market was going up, yeah. The thing is, the yield curve is not inverted over here, okay. We're talking about it when the yield curve is inverted and what that actually signifies. So if you view interest rates through the lens of growth and inflationary expectations and not, oh, it's cheaper and or more expensive to borrow money, then it's going to make sense to you why the stock market tends to go down when the interest rates go down. Here the Fed funds rate goes down, the stock market collapses. Here the Fed funds goes down, the stock market collapses. In 2019, you could say, no, here it went up briefly. Yeah, but then it gave it all back. You can say this is because of, COVID and whatnot. Well, let's go back and look at in the past as well then. Here was a recession. What happened when interest rates were going down? The stock market was going down. There was a recession right here. What happened when interest rates were going down here? There was a recession over here. What happened when interest rates were going down here? There was a recession over here. What happened when interest rates were going down here? There was a recession over here. And over here, a recession, etc. Right? So interest rates going down is not a good sign because it means that the economy is weak. Now, again, you don't have to take this from me. I'm gonna bring up a video from George Gammon, which he posted yesterday. I'll say. So this is from George Gammon's channel. I want to give credit to him, George Gammon. No, I love this guy when it comes to macro. So just listen to this, okay?
Research by staff in the Federal Reserve System that really
Wait, let me increase the volume of this. It's very low.
research by staff in the Federal Reserve System that really says to look at the short, the first 18 months of the yield curve, right?
Listen to this, okay?
And that has 100% of the explanatory power of the yield curve. And it makes sense because
Very, very, very important because it's gonna make you view interest rates through the lens of growth and inflationary expectations and not, oh, it's cheaper and or um, more expensive to borrow money depending on if interest rates go up and down, right? But it's more so about the economy is weak. Listen to him saying this.
there's a reason why that would be the case, because if it's inverted, that means the Fed's going to cut, which means the economy is weak.
All right, Jerome?
So again, if interest rates comes down, it's because the economy is weak. Yeah, that makes sense. Now I'm gonna go over 3 quotes from Milton Friedman. So there's an interest rate fallacy. As an empirical matter, low interest rates are a sign that monetary policy has been too tight, in the sense that the quantity of money has grown slowly. High interest rates are a sign that the monetary policy has been easy, in the sense that the quantity of money has grown rapidly. The broadest facts of experience run in precisely opposite direction from that which the financial community and academic economists have all generally taken for granted. Okay? Second quote. I thought the fallacy of identifying tight money with high interest rates and easy money with low interest rates was dead. Apparently all fallacies never die. Yeah? So it makes sense if you think about it. Yeah? And also, again, this is the greatest economist of all time that all the central bankers bow down to. Yeah? The central banks cannot control interest rates. That's a mistake. We went over that they follow the 2-year treasury yield. That's a mistake. They can control a particular rate, such as the federal funds rate, which is the overnight lending rate, if they want to, but they cannot control interest rates. Interest rates are determined by supply and demand in the treasuries. It's the free market. Now they have 2 tools. They have quantitative easing, which is going and buying treasuries and or mortgage-backed securities off of other banks' balance sheets, and yield curve control. They are 2 different things. And again, if you want to read what the difference is between the two, yield curve control is a monetary policy tool used by central banks to manage interest rates across different maturities of government bonds. It involves targeting specific yields or interest rates on government bonds with different maturities, typically aiming to keep long-term interest rates at the desired level. Through QE is designed, for example, is designed to combat the 2008 financial crisis and the Great Recession. The Fed injected liquidity into the financial system through massive purchases of bonds on the open market. This bid up prices of bonds, thus reducing longer-term interest rates and borrowing costs. Uh, Again, by contrast, under yield curve control, the Fed would set a specific long-term interest rate target and buy as many bonds as necessary to achieve it. Yield curve control would set a specific price for the bonds in terms of their yield. So if you view interest rates through the lens of growth and inflationary expectations and not, oh, it's cheaper and or more expensive to borrow money, then this all makes sense. Show me the time when the yield curve is inverted and interest rates come down, and that's bullish for the stock market. You might say, oh, the market went up here when the 2-year yield was falling. Well, you can even make that argument here, yeah? From the summer of 2006. But you got wrecked after, right? So look here. It was going up from 2006 when the 2-year was falling till October of 2007. So what have they done recently? Well, interest rates have come down, right? The 2-year treasury has come down, the 2-year treasury yield. They've gone down and the stock market's gone up, just like they did back here. They thought it was good right here. Yeah? But what happens eventually when interest rates fall enough? The stock market realizes that, oh, it's because the economy is really, really weak. Just like Jerome Powell himself said in that video that I brought up. So when interest rates come down, that is the yield curve re-steepening. Okay, now that's gonna be through the bull steepener. It's called that because it's bullish for bonds, it's bearish for the stock market and the economy in the short term. Okay, short to medium term. So just like how interest rates didn't really matter to the upside, they shouldn't really matter to the downside for 6 to 24 months. So this is the misconception, the fallacy of interest rates, like Milton Friedman puts it. Okay. Now I might say, oh, they're gonna do QE and all these things. And again, if interest rate cuts was all that mattered, if they could just do that, then why wasn't that the solution every single time? Why did they have to do the TARP, the Troubled Assets Relief Program, quantitative easing, multiple rounds, the CARES Act, which was the stimulus checks over here? Because again, like they cut rates right about here. Okay. You don't have to take it from me. Again, we have gone over this before. They cut rates right here. Okay? And the market still fell 20%. You might say, no, they didn't do that. Yes, they did. I can even prove that to you right here. Federal Reserve cuts rates this year and launched a massive $700 billion quantitative easing program. March 15, 2020. Did the stock market care? No. Okay. What about in 2008? November 2008, QE1. Okay? What did the stock market do for November? It was right around here. Let's just take it from here. Market still went down 24%. Okay, what about Bank of Japan? Quantitative easing was proposed in a 1995 article in the Nikkei financial newspaper by blah 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 blah. The Bank of Japan introduced QE from March 19, 2001. Okay, so what happened to the Nikkei index after they did QE? And why are these things not enough? Well, again, like you need to look at history and not just believe what you're being told. Okay, this is objective facts. March 19th, 2001. Market still went down another 40%, 43% to that wick low for another 8 years, from March 2001 till March 2009. And it didn't recover until now, 34 years later, 35 years later, 34 and a half, I guess, to be exact. So it's all about how you view interest rates. Yeah. Again, if rates are low, it's because credit conditions are already tight, so they want to encourage people to borrow. If rates are high, I don't know if I said it correctly. If rates are low, it's because credit conditions are already tight, so they want to encourage people to borrow. If rates are high, it's because credit conditions are loose, so they want to discourage people from borrowing. Okay, so it's not what you may think. Yeah? What makes sense to you is not necessarily what makes sense in practice. Look at what's happened every single time and view interest rates through this lens. It's the greatest economist of all time. So if you think rate cuts are bullish, that's fine, but show me the time where it's bullish. You might say mid-90s, yeah, but the yield curve was not inverted. And just like George Gammon brings up over here, listen to this.
If you say so, let's go ahead and look at this chart you're referring to. It's the near-term forward spread. We go all the way back to, call it 1970. On the left, in the middle, we go from 0 up to 6%, down to a negative 6%. What I want you to focus on specifically is each point in the chart that is below 0. So we were there in 1974, there in 80, 81, 90, 2001, 2000, just before the GFC, 2019, and here we are again today. Well, editor, if you go ahead and throw up the chart, I'm sure you've already been throwing it up, but what I want the viewer to see is every single time the near-term forward spread went negative, we had a recession. I also want to point out there are zero false positives going all the way back to 1970. 1970.
So is it different this time? Are interest rate cuts gonna be bullish all of a sudden? You can believe that. It's never been bullish historically speaking because it means the economy is weak. Higher interest rate means the economy is strong and that there's growth in inflation expectations. And lower interest rates means that there's contraction and or potential deflation fears. Okay? Well, I mean, technically it would be the same thing because it's a credit-based monetary system and the economy is built entirely on credit, yeah. So it's up for you to draw your own conclusions, but I figured this would be relevant to bring up because many people get confused when they think of interest rates. They go, "Oh, if the interest rates come down, then that's bullish, right? Because that means people are gonna borrow money for cheaper." Again, you can't have it both ways. It's the same thing when the stock market goes up during interest rate hikes, right? How do you explain that? Exactly. It doesn't really matter until 6 to 24 months later. What's the exact period when no one really knows, right? 6 to 24 months. And you could have said the same thing. Where is it? Yields. This is before the Great Depression, right? The yield curve before the Great Depression, which I went over in my last video. It inverted in January of 1928. What happened when the yield curve went up here? Well, the Great Depression began. This is interest rate cuts right here. This is interest rate cuts. Yeah? Did the stock market like it? I mean, you tell me. Was interest rate cuts good? Was interest rate cuts good over here? January 1928. When did it invert? Right there. How much did the markets go up? Let's even take it from this week low. 97%, it doubled. What happened when interest rates came down? Right around here, which is, it came out of inversion in December 1929. Well, you tell me what happened throughout this period and for the next couple of years. The Great Depression began when interest rates were coming down. You tell me what happened. Let's go to 2006 as well. You tell me what happened when interest rates were coming down here. From over here, again, let's do this. 10 to Fred. The yield curve was inverted from January 2006, okay? Which is right here. The stock market went up during the inversion 33% for about the same period as before the Great Depression. And then when it re-steepened here in June 2007, the stock market still went up for a bit, but then it collapsed during this part of the re-steepening. Completely waterfalled. So it's the same as today, right? Is it not? Look at this. The yield curve inverted, sustainable inversion, in July of 2022. How much is the stock market up since then? Let's take it in the middle of the July candle because I don't really know exactly. 25%, let's say, from July of 2022. It's 20 months ago. Oh. What's happened in the prior examples when interest were coming out, which is the yield curve re-steepening? Are we about to see a re-steepening here? It will look that way. It looks like it wants to go up. And what happens every single time, historically speaking, when that happens? Was it good here? Was it good before the global financial crisis? No, that was the beginning of the global financial crisis and the Great Depression. This is the Great Depression. Or how about the depression in the early 1920s? It was also inverted. Isn't that strange? The yield curve was also inverted before that depression. Before and during that depression. Was that good for the stock market? Let's go back and look at that example as well. Here was a depression. This was this was the Great Depression, but then we got an even bigger depression, which is now what we know now as the Great Depression. But this is also economic depression right here because of what? Oh, a flu, the Spanish flu, exactly 100 years prior. It's really strange. All right, so the stock market went down roughly 46%, and then let's go over to this one. It inverted here in June of 1920. The stock was already down a bit. June 1920, right here. It actually collapsed during the inversion, but when it re-steepened, when it came out of inversion, let's say in April 1928, the stock market fell even more from over here. Yeah, or like 20% over there. But it was, and sometimes it can collapse during inversion. No? And it wasn't until August 2021 when the yield curve had already steepened quite a bit, which was like right around here. Yeah, it's already coming out of inversion that the stock market finally recovered. So show me the time where interest rate cuts are bullish. You can sit there and say it's bullish because oh, it means everything is cheap. It's cheaper to borrow credit. Yeah, but you're not viewing it through the lens of growth and inflationary expectations. The reason why interest rate cuts are coming down, or interest rates are coming down, why there will be cuts, is because of supply and demand in the bond market, in the two-year Treasury, and the Fed funds follows the two-year Treasury yield. Okay, the Fed funds rate is just the overnight lending rate. And it's just like Milton Friedman says, the central banks cannot control interest rates. That's a mistake. They can control a particular rate, such as the federal funds rate, which is the overnight lending rate. It's not interest rates across the whole curve if they want to, but they cannot control interest rates. It doesn't matter what they do. They cannot control interest rates. That's it. Peace.